Hello everyone. In this video we will talk about if you want a practical car, just starting my Swift Sport, is it feasible to go back to a smaller car? Because as you might have known, or you will know now, I had a Tesla Model S 90D before this car, which I really like, but that car has approximately 3 times the horsepower, if not more, than this car has. And how is it when you go back to a smaller, lighter car with also less power? So in general, people always want to compete with, for example, the neighbor. If they got a new car, they want a new car. But as an enthusiast, I do not recommend that, because also from a financial point of view, I'm also founder in car. As you might have known, I try to also give you a little bit of advice there as a business sense. If you buy something that you cannot afford or is not able to be maintained, to be kept, this is not a good way to approach this, because the bills will stay. Also, the car can break down, and you have to put an additional car to still be mobile. But also the thing is, from an enthusiast point of view, I personally think that you could have a blast of a ride in a Ferrari, but also in an entry-level hot hatch, because the enthusiast likes the driving pleasure instead of the status and the sheer performance. So also a small car can give you ample performance. That being said, of course, a faster car gives you better performance, but might not be as fun. And for me, as an enthusiast, I think having fun and also a car that you can use all the time without having too much worries if something is breaking down. If you have an expensive car like a Ferrari, for example, I'm not trying to diss Italian cars, but they have a reputation of breaking down or being at least temperamental. And this is something that would, especially if you're stretching it, you sold one of your kidneys to have access to this boy's dream, and now you have access to it, so you just barely made it to buy it, but then you have to have all those additional costs that are recurring. So for example, parts that are breaking or have to be replaced, but also insurance, gasoline, etc., etc. Then you will be quite worrisome, because you already stretched it that much, if you're able to keep your baby, or you just did all those sacrifices in vain. Keep it in mind. And if you have a lighter car that is more simple, but is especially focused on fun, so even when you're not driving that fast, you still are able to have quite some fun, which is a nice thing, in my opinion. And this light-hearted approach and light-heartedness that this Swift Sport has is an atmosphere of joy. It has a nice engine, it has nice performance, but not comparable to Tesla Model S, of course, which is very, very fast. But also at a lower speed, you're still exploiting some of its boundaries to a degree, and which is very enjoyable. So there is a phrase, better drive a fast car, better drive a slow car fast than drive a fast car slow. It depends, of course. Some people like to parade and drive down the boulevard and show people their wealth and the status. For me, this is not the case, completely not. So if that is the case, then you have a fast car, you drive it slowly, that you get maximum attention out of your gasoline bills. Okay, that could be you. But an enthusiast really likes driving. Even if you drive the socks off a very slow car, this could be very interesting, instead of you having to just wiggle your toe on the gas pedal when you have a very fast car, because you feel that the car is barely scraping the surface instead of being exploited a little bit more. So therefore I think especially the hot hatches at the lower branch that still have all the checks in place. For example, I really prefer that a car has disc brakes all around, so the lightest car with disc brakes all around. And also, in my opinion, I am a father of 2 children, I have a wife, I want to take my children with me. I also want to, if I need to, take my dogs with me. So if you have a boot like the Swift Sport has, you can take groceries with you or dogs with you if necessary, or you can take some shopping items, or you can even move around some items, because it's a hatchback design. So hatchback, you can fold down the rear seats and you have quite a wide opening when you open the trunk. So that's a good thing in my opinion. Then in a practical sense, a lot of people now really like automatic transmissions. I think they are a blessing, especially if you have troubles. For example, you have an impairment or you have some muscle disease, then it is especially very important. But even if you have no problems at all, the automatics of these day and age are a lot faster and also more frugal than the manual transmissions. So why am I driving now a manual transmission car like the Swift Sport? And there are several reasons. The Tesla Model S had 1-speed, an electric car, so that was very pleasant. But this Swift Sport does not come in automatic in this market. It does come in automatic form in some Asian markets, but not in Europe. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that the benefit of a manual car is that you have a lot more driver engagement. It brings me back to the fun part of a car, which I really like, and also want to just switch it up. So don't be driving one style of car all the time. So now it's also very nice to drive shift again. And an additional benefit is that the simplicity of the manual transmission often means that you have lower bills when you have to maintain them. And an additional thing is that they oftentimes are able to cope with a little bit more torque. So if you want to change the car a little bit, it often has a little bit more reserves there. So I'm not dissing the automatic transmission. I think they are fabulous, especially the newest one. My wife also has an automatic transmission, an 8-speed in her BMW 330e, which is fabulous. Keeps the revs very low, but I like the driver engagement also in this type of setup. An additional benefit could be, especially if you have a love for cars. This is a thing with some automatics that's had me a little bit troubled. Sometimes if you have a car that shifts up every time because it wants to keep the revs low, the engine will be a little bit lugging, because oftentimes, especially if you want a little bit more performance, it will put a lot of stress at the lower RPM, which is not good for the engine. And the other thing is, of course, with this modern transmission, the automatic also knows when you're putting down your pedal, and then will downshift several gears to give you still the access to all the performance. But the other thing is, from the driver involvement, for example, if you're driving on a track or whatever, or a nice road, and you're expressing your driving line, and then the car is shifting up all the time, this can also be detrimental, because, for example, you want to stay in a certain gear and then it's already in 2 gears higher. This is not always what you want. And with this setup of manual transmission, of course, you are in complete control. And that also brings you back to the driver involvement part that I mentioned earlier. So pure out of performance, I would recommend the automatic transmission. But if you want driver engagement, then I would recommend the manual transmission. Another thing is that manual transmission cars are often a little bit lighter, which can be beneficial. So some pro drivers have better times driving a car, lap times driving a car with a manual transmission as compared to automatic transmission due to this factor. But most of us, including me, are not professional drivers, and then an automatic transmission is very often faster. Another thing to take into consideration, the faster the car is, so the more power it has, the bigger the benefit of an automatic transmission. So if you have a car like this with reasonable power, you don't have to upshift that often because there's quite some time between the shifts. But if you have a very fast car and you are going through all the revs at a very fast pace, then it could be additionally beneficial to have an automatic transmission car. Found my car, out.